معرفة.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let us discuss about Istisna. The word Istisna is derived from the root word sana, which means to manufacture or to construct something. So basically, Istisna is a contract of sale of specified items to be manufactured or constructed with an obligation on the part of the seller to deliver them to the purchaser upon completion. Okay. The first principle is with reference to the contracting parties. The contracting parties have to have the legal capacity and they must be sane. Let's talk about the second principle with reference to the subject matter. And the subject matter could have two components. One is the object, the other is the price. So with reference to the object, now what we have to understand is that the object in an istisna are basically identified raw materials which can be owned by the seller or it can be owned by some other third party seller, and the seller can go and purchase those third party raw materials to construct or build the agreed upon asset which has been agreed between the purchaser and the seller. And as a basic principle, this raw material needs to be Sharia compliant. And this raw material needs to have the element to get transformed. Then comes the discussion on price. In Istisna, the price may be deferred or paid in installments according to phases or stages of completion. And when it is paid in installment, generally it is linked to the stages of completion. So at each stage of completion of the manufacturing or construction, that Istisna amount is given by the purchaser to the seller. Now the third with reference to the conclusion of Istisna. So there has to be a proper offer and acceptance between both the parties. In the offer and acceptance, they have to clearly agree upon, okay, what is the asset which needs to be constructed or manufactured and when it needs to be, okay, completed. The timing and the specification needs to be agreed upon. In the contract of Istisna, after the execution, if at all the parties agree mutually that there needs to be certain amendments in terms of specification and also pricing, certain modifications and changes are allowed, but of course those changes have to be mutually agreed upon between both the parties. Let us discuss about the fourth important principle in Istisna, which is with reference to delivery and disposal. The delivery of the constructed or manufactured assets can be delivered prior to the date of the delivery or on the date of the delivery. But in case if the assets have been delivered and the assets do not match the specification which have been agreed upon between the parties, then the purchaser has the complete right to reject the assets. Meaning to say, the purchaser has the right to ask for a refund from the seller. Now let us quickly discuss about a structure for Istisna. This is the customer. This is a customer who approaches an Islamic bank. The customer needs certain constructed assets. They enter into a Istisna agreement. Based on the Istisna agreement, the customer makes progressive payments. And the obligation of the Islamic bank is to deliver certain constructed assets to the customer. Because the Islamic bank is not directly in the business of constructing assets, the Islamic bank at a parallel level enters into a separate agreement with a developer. The Islamic bank also makes progressive payments to the developer, and in the Istisna agreement it is agreed the specifications of the to be constructed asset is agreed upon, and the time of delivery is agreed upon. So what happens is that once the assets are ready, the assets are delivered by the supplier to the Islamic bank, and then the Islamic bank delivers the assets to the customer. The profit margin for the Islamic bank is the difference between this rate and this rate. The rate at which the Islamic bank purchases the goods from the supplier under the Istisna agreement, and the rate at which the Islamic bank sells the same goods to the purchaser through again the Istisna agreement. So that difference, okay, is the profit for the Islamic bank. The advantage to the customer is, of course, he gets a chance to make progressive payments, not upfront immediate payment. So this is basically a simple structure of how Istisna financing is done to customers.